All right, everyone. Good to see everyone. Welcome, Adrian. Are you back? Yay! Congratulations. Glad to see you. We'll call the meeting to order. This is our GRTC Development Committee meeting. Item number 1 on the agenda is approval of minutes, but I don't know that we got minutes. I know I've not reviewed them if we got them.
So the minutes that I did send you, Barb, were for July. I think we should bypass right now because you guys did meet last month. But I wasn't here, and when I tried to listen to the recording, I couldn't get clear sound. So maybe we just do a welcoming, don't approve minutes. I take them this month, and then your next meeting, you approve this meeting minutes.
Sounds good. If everyone is in agreement, we'll move past item number 1. Take no action. Okay. Item number 2 is new business. I don't have any new business. Is there any new business that we need to add to our agenda?
There is one item, Madam Chairwoman. We do need to add the item of discussion of the board retreat debrief.
Okay, board debrief.
Yeah, and that'll be Adrian.
We're going to do that right now?
I don't want to put her on the spot. We could, or we could do it at the end. Where would you rather go, Adrian?
Either one is fine. You want to do that now? It's board retreat debrief, not board debrief. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, board retreat.
Okay. Well, if Adrian's ready, we may as well just move forward with that now.
Sure. That's kind of a follow-up, just kind of those questions that we had posed as we went through the end of the board retreat, as far as related to the revenues coming in, as well as the cost of the projects or the operating of the service. We went through a prioritization and kind of talked about setting up additional committees for kind of diving into exploring what we want to do in terms of alternatives of revenue, as well as, and I can kind of share, let me kind of reshare my screen with the end of the. So there were the few questions. Should the CVTA dollars be used to support all services? And more or less everyone said that the answer was yes. And then and then there was the how much, and we had a more or less everyone said yes, at least some level, with the majority actually saying 3 months of expenses. And then the final question that got at kind of what we want to go with as far as additional conversation is, should local jurisdictions contribute more to fill the gap? And I'll and we rank the major capital projects, with north-south being one, followed by our transfer station, the western extension, and we can kind of get into where we are with those capital projects later when Tricia does an updates, but also the grant approach that we're going after with that. We'll also want to share that with you guys with the updates. So just want to kind of kick it to you guys with conversation from the board level as far as what needs to happen in terms of the local jurisdictions. If additional support needs to be added, even if it's just maybe something throwing out every year, doing a service agreement, knowing what we plan on doing for the fiscal year in terms of funds going to level of service that's kind of been grandfathered in. Even when we go after grants, maybe an expectation that this is what's happening with demo, this is what's happening with TRIP, but these are some alternatives as those grants leave. Maybe we should already list out some funding sustainability, whether it's from the jurisdictions, or is it not even worth going after, knowing if we don't have the funds to support that in conversation as we go after those, in terms of kind of a letter of support. But throwing it back to you, I think we had talked about doing a small group with either the committees or even the staff members from the jurisdictions to talk about alternatives. And we've also continued to work with Scudder and Michael Baker to look at what other revenue sources are out there, and that's still in the works to bring in. And one idea was the looking at Uber and Lyft, those sort of models, if there was any revenue to come in. So they're still investigating that, but I'll stop talking and let you guys talk.
Yeah, I think I talked to you about trying to get staff members from the jurisdictions to kind of brainstorm about ideas. I think I've always kind of wondered with the formation of the CBTA, whether we needed to kind of come up with a definition of regional for transit, which is hard to do. You know, we've got this core service, and that is, without it, you can't really build a regional network off of it. So I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of kind of defining and vetting ideas that might be good for local staff to sit down and try to run through and then present, you know, to this committee or to the board in full. Does anybody else have some ideas?
This may not be exactly relevant to what we're discussing, but it is an offshoot. One of the things, and Cheryl and I have talked a little bit from a perspective of you know, ground level where people get on and off, particularly in suburban jurisdictions and new routes. Let's take Midlothian Turnpike for an example. To me, as we talk about future viability of, you know, reduced free fares and so forth, the challenge that Barb mentioned about regional cooperation on this, depending on the you know, funding and usage and percentage of usage. Every month we see levels of usage from Powhatan all the way in. The best way to succeed is to make the metrics increase in terms of ridership and all of those little things that make people say, gosh, I'm glad it's there. The one thing that maybe it's a personal thing on my side of it is when I see people standing there, you know, at a mid-block Midlothian Turnpike space in the grass, not knowing how they even got to there safely to wait at that little signal, you know, at that little sign for their pickup, that doesn't scream to me, you know, success. It screams to me, this could stay or it might, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And I think investing, and again, I'm going the wrong direction in this because we're talking about how do we find funds instead of spend them. I think that there's some value for us from a development perspective to think about what our expectation is of growth in improving stops to make them comfortable and safe for those using it. Obviously, we have to prioritize the ones because there's plenty of them out there that need to be improved. But I think that that's investing appropriately to make it successful, so that people are more, so that those in charge are willing to ramp up the percentages down the road on the big picture budgets, I think is important. So it's more lobbing that into the midst of it. It's what's on my mind, trying to make the program as successful as it can be as we grow the system. Does that make sense?
Yeah, right. The success of expansion, you know, I think they've always tied ridership. You know, if people are comfortable getting to the stops and waiting at the stops, you're going to be more successful, which is why DRPT is good about allowing some of the demo grant money to be used towards capital, because they see the value in that. It's just not something that happens overnight. And
Yeah.
It's expensive. So the ETI plan that GRTC has to get 75% of the stops with good infrastructure, I think is something that we still want to work towards. But, you know, just looking at the expansion that, and not even all the expansion, just those, I think it was like three or four that you brought up at the retreat. If those expansion projects go forward, we don't have a good funding source to operate them. Which, you know, my gut reaction first is to say, well, then we shouldn't be implementing something we cannot pay for. You know, that just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm a little bit hyperventilating over that. I'm like, we got to figure that out.
Right. Well, and if I may, Barb, say something, I agree with you. And that's something that we need to take into consideration. While we get a demo grant or a grant that may only last for a year or 3 years, we need to look long term to see is it sustainable once that grant goes away. And if not, do we implement that service? It's great to put service out there, but if you put service out there and people get used to it or dependent upon it, and then you have to snatch it away, that's not a good look.
No, and that's, yeah, definitely something we would want to avoid. I don't think any of our elected officials would be happy about having to cancel a service, whether it's fabulously popular or even just a little popular, you know, not good. Yeah, so it does need to be sustainable.
Yeah, I agree, but I also think that, you know, if we've agreed with the expansion that we've already done with the sources of revenue, and looking at it from a regional perspective, we are way behind in our regional planning of transportation. And at some point, the plan that we put together that get us to that place of becoming a reliable regional service provider is essential. I mean, it's just absolutely essential. And even though the funding is not affirmed, I think that our fight and our deliberate efforts to get the funding and make that realization of the necessity and keeping that plan on the front of everybody's agenda of all sources of revenue that are necessary is extremely important for this region. And the same way we get into a demo option of funding, which is short term, that funding allows us an opportunity to show the value and the benefit and to use those outcomes to continue to promote and encourage other leveraging of funds. Whatever we identify, I agree the staff should be the one that we ask to come together, regional staff come together and present some options and proposals and strategies to the board. But I would want to make sure that the board stay intentional and determined to make this regional plan work, because to not do something because we don't have a guarantee of where the additional funds are going to come from, I'm concerned that it stifles progress in moving forward. So it'll be hard to explain to people that we can't continue a good thing that we started. But that's also the argument that we'll use with the resources and the funding sources that are out there to help bring us to the level of consciousness that we need to continue to find those funds.
Yeah, I think we've got great momentum and support regionally for the expansion projects that are on the table right now. So keeping that enthusiasm and momentum going is great. And, you know, maybe it is thinking beyond the demo grant and having conversations kind of concurrently as we're going after demo grant money about what's it going to look like if this is successful? How are we going to fund it if it's successful, and trying to get the partnerships that we need through the localities. I think there's a misconception that the CVTA money has solved all the issues. You know, we've got this great sustainable source, but it's being used kind of to keep our foundation going, and it's not a source for expansion. You know, so new service. And I think you guys said it at the retreat, the whole idea that as across the nation, as agencies expand, you know, the federal money is not expanding in the same way. So the more we grow, it means the less there is for Roanoke, you know, or whoever. So everybody's growing, but the pot isn't. So, you know, increasing costs, decreasing federal funds is a challenge as well. And then, yeah, just keeping up with the salaries that we need to offer to folks and benefits so that we've got a good team of people keeping the system running as well. Well, it seems like there's maybe some agreement that we should pull together local staff to kind of brainstorm and have conversations with their administration on ideas on how to make sure that our expansions are sustainable. Is everyone good with that? Todd's off the phone. He's retiring, by the way, on January 24th. So I don't quite know what's going to happen with Henrico.
He's coming back to, he had some technical difficulties, so he texted me and said he was logging off right quick, but he should be coming back.
Oh, okay. All right, so anything we need to do with Henrico, let's do that right now. Take a vote. Okay, so we'll go ahead and pull together, Adrian, if you would, a subcommittee to start having some discussions.
That sounds great. And I would say that the two projects that the North-South BRT and Western are the two kind of expansion projects that we know regionally and capital-wise we're all in for, but I don't think we've even begun the conversation about the operating costs associated with that. So, yeah. Joe and myself can work on getting the group together.
Okay, sounds good. All right, with that, we'll move on to item number 3, which is a capital project update. And I think Trisha's gonna run through that for us.
I kind of have all of the agenda items lumped into one presentation here.
Oh, okay.
So
you're going to talk to us about capital projects, service updates?
Yes.
All of it. Okay, that sounds good. Item 3, A through H.
Yes. All right. Should be all of the following here: service updates, microtransit updates, paratransit, service priorities, capital projects, and ending with a fleet update. So starting with our service updates, our October, man, I'm so sorry, that's supposed to be October 2024 changes. I apparently already have 2025 on the brain. We did additions to our fixed route, 7A, 7B, and our 1A and 1, as well as 3 of our microtransit link zones, Azalea, Cloverdale, and Ashland. So just running through what those changes were and kind of what impact we're seeing from these. So we did an increase in frequency on the 7A and 7B to every 30 minutes. So that was previously 60 minutes, now 30 minutes, meaning that where they overlap in red here on the map, creates a 15-minute trunk. So we have a 15-minute service leaving downtown transfer station as well as leaving Richmond International Airport. So our number of weekday trips increased from 36 to 73, and we have seen from our June booking to our October booking an increase. So we're up to about 1,300 average daily boardings on the 7A alone. This next one is just kind of our month over month. Keeping in mind, the service started October 20th, so it's kind of the midway point in October, and November and December. So we're seeing an increase in ridership in all 3 months, even though kind of historically with winter trends, additional holidays, inclement weather, we usually see a decline in ridership in November and December. So we're still going strong with those service improvements. 7A or 7B follows a very similar trend here. We increased the number of weekday trips by 2, by twice as many, and then we are about 1,400 average daily boardings in the October booking to date. And then still seeing that increase in ridership across the past 3 months. Our 1A, we improved a 30-minute frequency in the evenings in our October 2024 service updates. So even though our average daily boardings, as you can see, remains pretty constant, we wanted to look at the trip utilization for the newly added trips. So the purple that you see is what previously existed after 7 p.m. The green is our newly added, so we can see it really is evened out between people using the trips that they may be more familiar with, their standard trip times, as well as people utilizing the new trips that we've added in for that 30-minute service.
Okay, I don't get it. What? Can you say that again?
So the purple is what existed before the October service update. Right, and the purple and green together is what exists today. So the green is the 6 new trips that we added.
Okay.
So we just wanted to make sure that people were aware, using the new trips, finding them convenient for their schedules. And it looks like they are. Their ridership is spreading out across all of the trips. The previous ones are still being utilized well, between 15 and 30 average daily riders. And then the green trips, our newly added trips, are also seeing anywhere from 15 to I think 26 is the highest average daily boardings during those new trips.
Okay. So I get it.
Okay.
Previously, starting around 8 o'clock, we went to an hour headway.
Correct.
And we changed it to 30-minute headways. And
Yes.
we're getting good ridership with those. Good.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Our Route 1, the October service updates added 20 new stops, and this went from our J. Sargent Reynolds up to Virginia Center Commons. That's the northern tip of the Route 1 extension. So this is one of our top performing routes. The December ridership is 89,978. And we're seeing a fairly similar average daily boardings from June to October, but we are seeing a lot of stop utilization, the higher ridership at the end of line. So people really are kind of using this to go to that shopping center at the very end. This extension does account for about 6% of Route 1's total ridership as well.
Mm-hmm.
For the microtransit October extension, October updates, we did Azalea extension, so we added Saturday service. So these two charts are looking at Saturday. So the red box here is around our October, November, and December months. And the blue bar here at the bottom, as opposed to the orange is weekday and blue is Saturday. So we had about 30 riders that first Saturday in October, 201 on Saturdays in November. There was 5 Saturdays in that month, and 248 riders on Saturday service, and there was only 4 Saturdays in December. So
Tricia, that appears to be, the October just appears to be an awareness thing, right?
Well, it started October 20th, so that really is only one specific Saturday. Yeah. Yeah, so we're excited to see how that grows and how that changes in the coming months. We also have our average passenger per hour, looking at our trip times. Sorry, excuse me. So we wanted to keep track of our passenger utilization across the times that the service is available. So we have every hour here, how many passengers we've been getting from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So you can see the last 2 hours are not as popular currently. So this is just something for us to keep an eye on as we continue the service and move forward to see what resources are needed where.
Mhm.
Our next up expansion was to our Azalea Link service. So there was a northern expansion, this little clear purple lined section, and that was made per customer's request. We had a couple of houses over there who were really interested in the service, but we're having to drive into the zone to then get service. So we've made that slight tweak, as well as the major part of the extension is the southern tier to connect to Virginia Center Commons.
Yeah, that's nice.
And I have a heat map later on when we go through each zone, so we can see the ridership for that specific area.
Mm-hmm.
And then our last link update is to the Cloverdale zone. So there was the La Padre library here in red, closed on December 31st for renovation, and it's going to be closed for the entirety of the next year. So to make up for that, we've added service on this kind of southwestern portion here. So it includes the Clover Hill Library as well as a Publix grocery store. So both good additions to that zone. And then I have a microtransit update to go through each zone. So this is looking at our point of interest and kind of how that's changed over the past 3 months, where people are using the service and where people are going. These are pretty, I don't know, we seem pretty consistent that these are the points of interest, but a little bit of fluctuation in the percent change from month over month. We've seen 23% increase into Bon Secours, which is this FAR medical center out here in the zone. So great utilization there, and a 29% increase in our Essex Village apartment. So word is still getting out. We're still kind of increasing in those areas, which is great. Our Ashland zone, our highest, is now Virginia Center Commons. So coming in strong with that new addition. So that's really fun to see that people are utilizing that to connect. Cloverdale, the Commonwealth Shopping Center is at 35% increase, and then the Manchester YMCA is at 55. Cloverdale is one of the interesting ones because we just seem to have pockets kind of sporadically. So these are housing complexes together or neighborhoods together that really seem to be spreading the word.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. And then Powhatan, we've seen an increase in Flat Rock Shopping Center as well as the Walmart. So more interest in going to those two locations in December as opposed to November. So that's always nice to see. And then Sandston, not as many connections to our White Oak, though it still makes up the majority of the point of interest trips. But we have seen a 30% increase in both our Walmart and Food Line locations. So people trying to get to the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
Our next step as far as microtransit is concerned, we're doing a rider survey. It actually launches this Monday. So we're really excited. It's a combination of demographic questions, trip purpose, satisfaction, just the standard origin and destination, really so we can see who's riding, where they're going, and how they're finding the trips so far. And we're going to run that for 8 weeks to get consistent data, and it'll be available online. There's going to be flyers on all of the vans with QR codes as well as paper copies. And then our customer service reps will be mentioning it when people book a ride to look out for this when they're riding. And if you book by phone, it'll actually prompt you to go ahead and take it while you're waiting. So we've tried to make it as convenient as we can for people. So we're hoping to get a lot of good responses.
So, for us here in Chesterfield, is it okay if we push it out and try to target folks that are close to Cloverdale to try to hear if there are people that would want to be using Link and they're outside of the zone?
Yeah, that would be fine. So if they've never used it before, it will kind of skip them through the satisfaction questions, but it will prompt them to like open answer. Let us hear your comments. Let us hear your feedback.
Okay.
And enter them for a chance to win a gift card. So
it is really geared towards current riders.
it is more so, but we're happy for any feedback.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. We're also working on our FY26 zone refinement with our jurisdictions. This is part of our regional public transportation plan and working with the RRTPO TAC group. Any comments on that priority list are due into GRTC by the 14th. So we're excited to move forward with that. And I have a list of those priorities further down in the slides as well. I just have a quick update for paratransits, just to look at our 3-month ridership, complaints per 10,000, and our on-time performance. So we have seen an uptick in complaints this December. Majority seem to be weather related. On-time performance is pretty consistently sitting at 86 for the past 3 months. And then we did see a decline in the ridership in December. Again, that just kind of follows our usual patterns. There's a couple of holidays, so they don't have service on those days, as well as facilities being closed, maybe medical facilities and things of that nature. And then weather always hinders people from coming out. So we do see a little bit of drop from inclement weather as well. And then just looking at our service priorities, I have our 2025 priorities, and then the 26 are coming up in the next slide. So the priorities for 2025 were the Route 1, the 7A, 7B, and the implementation of those 4 listed microtransit zones. So just happy to say, check, check, check all the way across here. We've done all of those. And then moving on to what we're doing for FY26. This is what's come out of our transit strategic plan, that 10-year planning effort that was pulled together. So we're working with the TPO TAC members to ask our jurisdictional members if there's anything else that they would like us to consider as far as FY26 priorities, kind of compiling that list, getting costs associated, bringing it back internally to look at budget, to look at resources, and then making a finalized plan for FY26. And that will go to the board here in the coming months once we have a finalized plan. And then launching into capital projects. So we're going to go through the North-South BRT as well as the transit-oriented development plan, the BRT Western Extension, park and ride that's associated with it, the pole station modifications, our demo of our adjacent lot at 325, the permanent downtown transfer station study, and that it also has a transit-oriented development plan along with it, our ETI improvements, and our new vehicles. All right. So starting off here with our North-South BRT. So the parking inventory has been completed, and comments are being put together from GRTC and City of Richmond staff. Phase 1 NEPA is underway and scheduled to be completed in February of 2026. The preliminary station locations have been identified, and so GRTC is still working with Kimberly Horn to refine them, just keeping in mind presence of on-site utilities and other right-of-way issues that might require some slight movements or station locations. But there'll be no major changes after this point. And then as far as public, yes.
Can I ask a question? I get confused by phase 1 and phase 2. So
Oh, yes.
phase 1, you mean the green line?
Yes,
Right.
so that's the 11 to 13 mile extension, kind of from our current Route 1, that Chamberlain Wilmer area, all the way down here, Midlothian Turnpike.
And so all the things that you just went over, downtown routing, parking study, station locations, NEPA, public, all that has to do with phase 1.
Correct.
Is any work on phase 2 going to happen anytime soon?
That is a good question. I don't know that I have that in front of me.
They will be doing some preliminary work in this phase with this particular contract for the phase within phase 1 for the outsides. They won't be doing any actual like NEPA and all of that, but some preliminary towards the end. But we are applying for funds for the additional steps to include both the dotted lines and the green with the next round of merit.
Okay. Planning for or trying to get merit technical, or I don't know what they call it, but planning funds to do stuff for phase 2. Kind of go through the
Right.
same thing that you've already done for phase 1.
Yeah, we're trying to keep them as close as possible to each other so that even if we aren't ready in October 2032 for whatever the reason might be, you will at least have all the environmental and engineering all done for it, but not, of course, too far along.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even have the funds this time around for the engineering for the north-south. This is just the NEPA and the station locations.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So for the phase 1 stuff right here, you're going to have to go get other funding to do anything beyond 30% design, right?
We need additional funding even to do 0 to 30 for
Okay.
this particular effort. Yeah.
So it's really the big milestone accomplishment is getting through NEPA.
NEPA and station locations, right?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
For public participation, we already held 1 round of stakeholder meetings in October. And that was to engage, north side, downtown, south side. And we're currently developing, GRTC is an additional stakeholder engagement plan to begin to reach out to the Civic Center and the Business Association and any additional stakeholders as we move along. Those are all of, updates for north-south. This is our north-south BRT transit-oriented development plan. So we're partnering with City of Richmond to engage a consultant to assist in the development of a TOD plan. This is to identify opportunities after station locations have been identified. So now that we have the preliminary station locations down, this kind of starts to go into effect. The proposal for this is going to be brought to the board for approval this month.
Coming to the board in January.
The proposal for this project.
The contract award.
Yes, sorry. We also have an update for our Western Pulse extension. The conceptual design is complete. We're currently in the preliminary engineering, the PE phase. The 30% engineering design documents are expected by June 2025. And our NEPA analysis for this project is underway. We have a cultural resource letter and area of potential effect sent to the Department of Historical Resources in December, on December 3rd. The cultural resource reviewed by consultants is completed as well. There was a threatened and endangered species review that is completed and sent to the FTA on November 13th. The review did find that 1 proposed endangered species may occur within 400 feet of the project, but it's not anticipated to adversely affect the tricolored bat. And then this project has the estimated completion date of August 29th. The park and ride acquisition kind of pairs along with our park and ride. So this would be our end of line at Parham. Henrico is acquiring the parcel in question, and a conceptual design has been created, but it was recently revised to route bus traffic from Parham instead of Old Parham Road. And this change will help prevent noise pollution to the two closest residential properties. And it'll also keep vehicle entrances separate for personal vehicles entering for the park and ride versus Pole Station buses. So really that worked out well across the board. And our station modifications, so the contractor has completed about 75% of the work as of Monday. So really moving strong on these pole station modifications. We are complete. We are complete from Allison Street all the way down to Rockets. So kind of leaving that western portion as what's yet to be done. The Science Museum. Sorry, let me follow along here. The Science Museum has started work, but it's been a little bit slow due to the weather. So it's nice that we were moving along a little bit ahead. So that won't impact our schedule. And then the Western VCU Medical Center is waiting on power washing. That was also on hold during the weather, but the construction is complete. That was just its last phase. So between water constraints and weather, we'll just wait that out. So next up is going to be Scott's Addition, Staples Mill, and Willalon. And this is kind of our before picture before we started on the majority work, and this is our after picture showing the additional concrete being poured, the new rub rails installed, and the tactile warning strips back in place.
Nice.
And then we also have updates for our adjacent property here at 325 East Bell, our fleet storage. Asbestos abatement has been delayed due to weather and loss of water, so that was supposed to start on Monday. Hopefully it's not more than a week and a half delayed, just kind of waiting on everything to come back online. But water is required to prevent the asbestos containing dust from becoming airborne in the abatement process. So we will just wait. And our permanent downtown transfer station and TOD study. The ordinance authorizing the MOU between City of Richmond and GRTC for use of Site 9 for the permanent transfer station was introduced and referred to the Land Use, Housing, and Transportation Standing Committee on December 9th, and they approved it on the 17th. So now GRTC is identifying and applying for sources of funding for this transfer station.
For the study or for what is you're going after funding for what? To support the transit infrastructure, to construct it?
Construct, yeah, we're applying for a raise this round for the construction. So we're going to go after a full 25 million.
Ooh.
And then the estimate right now is somewhere around 50 million for just the transit program parts at the bottom to be able to kind of be a standalone project as we work with the city on what the site should actually be and moving forward. And it still needs to go to full council though in January.
So the whole thing costs 50. You're going after 25.
That's the max amount that is eligible with raise.
Okay, so then you're going to try. How are you going to come up with the other 25?
So we have the 6.5 already from the regional projects from CVTA. We have GRTC has some funds, about 3 million from the sale of the Davis Avenue that already exist. We're still going after the bond effort. And then we are planning this round for smart scale now that we actually have a site to go after. We're going to do bus and busted facilities if that opportunity is out there. We're going to go after all of it, CMAC, and then it should be eligible now with merit as well as a major capital project. And then whatever that gap is, if we have the opportunity to do the CVTA regional again with the city.
Okay, so the next round is smart scale, merit, CMAC, RSDP, everything.
everything that it would be eligible for. We're going to try and make up the delta of, what is it, relatively 20 million.
Got it.
We have our transit stop improvements. So Wendell and Kimberly Horn are still developing a 1 to 3 year implementation plan, as well as including ongoing maintenance in that plan as well. Design and install of shelters for Richmond and Henrico is estimated to be completed by July 2025. And the system-wide stop assessment, so this is the field work associated with going out and assessing each of the stops, is 50% complete as of yesterday. A little bit slower of a start again on the second half with the weather, but we're ahead of schedule, so a week off for weather isn't going to put us behind. The first 60 shelters delivered last quarter. We have 69 shelters identified for Henrico and City of Richmond, and then the second order is to be placed in the first quarter of 2025. And then due to need for right-of-way acquisition funds, plans are being updated for Henrico amenities to accommodate that additional cost.
You guys have just been so low key about the fact that you were able to get $10 million for bus stop improvements. That's just huge. Yeah. So you guys deserve a huge pat on the back for that.
We're really excited to start getting these out and placed, and it's one thing to have the money, but for everyone to see it and it be visible and be out and around is going to be a big impact. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then my last update here is just our fleet vehicles. So we had our 40-foot buses and our 29-foot buses in service this past summer. We have 4 60-foot articulated buses in production with an estimated delivery in January of 2025, and 8 more in production for late 25. We have 12 of the gasoline minivans for Link put in service in the summer of 24, and then 5 electric vans in the fall of 24. And we have 13 paratransit vehicles that were just put into service in the spring of 24, and we also have 30 more in production for later this month. So lots of new vehicles coming in.
Trisha, the Arctics are not coming in January 25, it's 26.
I'm so sorry. I knew that and I wrote 25, so I said 25. I'm so sorry. Yes.
The same too. They're the exact same right hand.
That would have been exciting though.
Yeah. Terrible. I tried to set up one of our own.
Okay, just a minute.
That is the end of my presentation, but I'll give Barb just a minute. It looks like.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Barb.
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for Trisha? Okay.
One simple question. What's the total number of new vehicles, and what's the timeline for the downtown transfer?
The permanent, let me.
We're putting a time, I don't think
Excuse
it's
me.
on there. We're putting on, we're saying about 5 years after we kind of work the city of what the next steps are.
And total number of vehicles I can.
And as she's looking up that number, I can't remember what it is, but those are all replacement vehicles, just to note that. They're not expansion vehicles. They're just replacing vehicles that already met their useful life.
And they're not
Yes.
part of the zero emission vehicle transition plan?
No, we are actually going to hold off on the bus portion of that original pilot as we had planned, and that's not on that spreadsheet. We'll send you an updated spreadsheet. We got the 5 electric vans. We're going to try those out, but we are starting conversations just to also understand hydrogen alternative, knowing that originally when we did that, that was the better kind of equivalent to CNG, but there was no access to it. And that has changed since the study has ended. So we're looking at what would be where we could get that from and how we would make that happen at this point. So as far as the 5 vehicles that we were going to use electric for, we're going to moving forward with CNG and just going to get 40-foot commuter vehicles.
Yep. Yeah, I think the electric stuff is just constantly changing and hasn't settled in quite yet. I'm excited to learn more about the hydrogen.
Adrian, quick question on the end of useful life. Is that a predetermined number at the beginning of the life, or is it based on O&M of the actual vehicle?
It's a few different measures, it's actual years. So 12 years for the vehicles, and then also the mileage of it, which is 400,000.
Okay. So whether it's humming along, doing a great job, once it reaches those, it's taken out of commission.
Well, we have plenty that are like those 5 I mentioned. We've had those for quite a while. Those are commuter vehicles, but we would try and keep them going. But that's when they're eligible to be replaced by federal funds or state funds at that point in time. And then in terms of maintenance, I mean, you got 400,000 miles, and you're that old. You're probably being maintained a lot more often than some of the other vehicles.
No, I wasn't leaning towards saying why are we getting rid of them at 400,000. I'm just more just trying to understand the metric. Thank you.
Yeah.
How about the paratransit service study? What's the status of that?
We kick off tomorrow with that study, and we're using WSP to do that analysis. So we'll keep you guys updated as we work towards that. Yeah,
I think I've talked to you about trying to think about region-wide. I feel like that's a lot of the feedback we're hearing from CBTA members is wanting to have service for elderly disabled folks that goes beyond jurisdictional boundaries. It's a little bit more region-wide. And hopefully that'll...
Yeah, I think the first part of it will be to kind of assess the efficiency of the current service, kind of looking at best practices, because there have been models out there that are doing something different than what we are doing today. So I want to see how that, and then I mean, we can look at what other places are doing, meaning what the jurisdictions regionally are doing, like you guys, to see how that kind of fits in the model, as well as more of the what's the next steps forward.
Okay. Are there any other questions? We got DRPT grant applications due February 1st, so I guess you guys are busy with that.
We are, and the only one that we're moving forward just for major, just let you guys, major application for capital. Actually, we're going to move forward with the Western extension, since that one's pretty far along. Yeah, so we've met with DRPT already on that. And then others are just like we mentioned, the North-South needs the next funds. Yeah. DTS, we already have $3 million to do engineering for the transfer station. So we need to get on that with the city so that we can spend that and they don't take it away. But a lot of others, it's a significant amount. I would say it's similar to last year, around 50 million.
Nice. Okay. Well, you guys are good at that. So I bet you'll get close to 50 million. All righty. Anybody else? Okay, let me see if I can find the agenda. Okay, so we did it all on number 3. Just going through there. Sure enough. Yep. Is there any old business? It's item number 4 on the agenda. Okay. If there's no other business, we are adjourned. Okay.
Great meeting.
Thank you. Have a great job.
Good work, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.